Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I am Dr. Andrew Scaff. He is Dr. Michael Werman, Esquire. On today's show, we'll talk about the Major League Baseball's opening day. The Kansas City Royals kind of mixed bag so far in their first 5 games of the season. But we will start today's show with the NCAA tournament. It's not been terribly surprising, I guess, is the like maybe it's not surprising in that there aren't many surprises, Mike. It's very, very chalky between the two Final Fours, men's and women's sides. We have 7 1 seeds and 1 2, so just one off of perfect chalkiness. I think I know where this is going to go for you. Do you prefer this style of tournament with less upsets? Is that your ideal tournament?
I like maybe a few upsets here and there, but in general I like the best teams to win. I would prefer to see the best teams in the finals rather than and so it's much easier for upsets to happen in the NCAA tournament because there's only one game than it is for say the NBA playoffs or the NHL or um, even Major League Baseball playoffs. There's
The
one
best
game.
of sevens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because those are series, and then one game, anything can happen, and a better team, if you will win more likely than not enough games out of a series to advance. And I think to beat a team in a series means that you've been playing better consistently, so you deserve it, I think, more than just a one-off, one and done win. But
Yeah.
I do think that I was reading an article somewhere that on the men's side, at least, these four Final Four teams were like four out of the top 7 or 8 Ken Pomeroy rated teams in the past decade, and they were all four this year. So, like,
Wow.
this is a uniquely strong year for the number one seeds, apparently. I had just read
Yeah.
that. Like Gonzaga, like 2021 was on this list, but all and some other I can't remember what other some other UConn last year was on the list, but like the top two teams I think are Duke and Houston uh,
From
from
this
this year,
tournament.
from like the
Yeah.
last several years. So, and then Auburn and Florida were also on that list in like the top 7 or 8 or something like that. So, this seems to maybe this is a year maybe that was destined to be a chalky year, at least for the number ones. Um, I ended up having a chalkier bracket than you. So far I am winning. Unless Duke wins out and wins, you still have a chance to beat me in the brackets. Since I picked Houston to win, I largely picked Houston because they are playing the Final Four in Texas, in
Yeah.
San Antonio. So I think maybe they will have a home crowd advantage. Uh, um, in Houston. I don't think, um, in San Antonio, I don't think there'll be, even if you're like a Texas fan or an A&M fan, I don't think those teams are as against Houston. Like there aren't like rivals against Houston that dislike Houston as much as like, you know, if I guess it's also in San Antonio, which is not a city that has a major UT San Antonio, I guess, but doesn't have but it's not like the home of
Right.
Texas, not home of Texas A&M or
Right. Not a traditional
Baylor.
blue blood like sports
Yeah.
school. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Houston, it's fairly close. So the probably fans will probably travel well, and probably the other teams, players in Texas, or the fans from Texas that are there would also kind of gravitate toward Houston as well. So that's my that was one of the things that I was predicting. Um, yeah, on the men's side, but we'll see what happens. Duke, I think, is is what a lot of people seem to think is the class of the tournament. But I think anything can happen in one game, as we've talked about. And you mentioned there's only one number two seed that made it of any of the 8, and that was Connecticut, the team that we both actually picked to win the whole thing in the women's side. And it seems strange that they were a 2 seed because they seem to have the best team in the women's bracket this year. At least they had the best player. Um, so what do you think of Connecticut's chances to win? Um, Paige Buckers and Co.
Packers.
Beckers, yes, Beckers.
Yes.
Uh, but she's known as Paige Buckets as her nickname.
Yes.
So
Right.
so it's hard to pronounce
Yeah.
Beckett's, Buckets, Bucker. It should be Bukers uh, in German, but
No.
anyway. But so how do you think? Um,
Well,
she,
we did both pick UConn to win in our brackets,
yes,
so
we did.
I think we both think they have pretty good chances, but yeah, maybe now it's like in the what's the like the probability odds if you're given the option to switch to another team now, Mike, do you take it or do you stick
The
with
classic
UConn?
Wally Hall. Uh, let's make it a problem. It's always better to switch in those
Yeah,
cases because you have more. You have a better. But that's only if you've picked that door. But it doesn't quite work in this scenario.
it
Uh,
doesn't. No.
it doesn't do anything. But
Or no, it's not just straight scenario like just
yeah,
a random.
just
It's not just a number that is behind
should
the
you pick the
door.
door?
It's
Yeah, what's behind door
yeah,
number? Like, you pick one door, and then you know it's either two or three, and you pick. So if you were given that chance, I guess you should. If it's just random chance, you would switch because the odds of you picking one
the
out of
correct team from the beginning.
yeah, the correct team from the beginning would be one out of four, and then if you were given two other teams, it would be one out of two because it was one of those two is going to
Yeah.
have. Um,
Well, but we picked this from it was 1 out of 64, and now we're down to 1 out of 4. So the odds are much better, right?
which I guess we would switch.
Yeah. But we
Uh,
but we know what's in the box though to begin
we do
with
know what's
for
in the box. We
what
know
was behind the door, whichever way you want to describe it, right?
UConn, UCLA,
If
South
we didn't know
Carolina,
which team we picked from the
Texas.
beginning, we knew the team that we picked was still in the tournament. You would switch boxes though, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the women's Final Four is in. You know where the women's Final Four is?
No, I haven't
It's
even
in
looked.
Tampa. So there's no real home court advantage for any of the teams.
It's UConn to
Uh,
be in the same time zone.
UConn, South Carolina, and Texas would be the closest teams. Maybe
Yeah,
South Carolina would be the closest. Uh, but you might think of well, UConn is maybe in the Northeast. There might be a lot of snowbirds from the Northeast down
already in
Florida.
Tampa.
Yeah, so maybe that would be the best pick, UConn. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think UConn is the best player, and I think their team is a little bit more. And I don't think South Carolina's team is quite as good as it was last year when they went undefeated. Were they undefeated last year or something very close? They were
I'm not
undefeated a
sure.
couple years ago. Uh, and they ended up losing one time when they were undefeated.
Yeah,
I'm look it up. It's the Caitlin Clark's Iowa team lost to the
was it South Carolina?
I think they lost to South Carolina in the final, wasn't it?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Um, South Carolina was 38-0 last year. They were 36-1 in 22-23 when they
Hmm.
lost that one game in the Final Four. I believe they lost that game to was that the game they lost to LSU and then LSU won the final? Um,
Sounds right.
so yeah, anyway. Um, yeah, LSU no, Iowa beat South Carolina in the Final Four that year.
Hmm.
But then Iowa lost to LSU in the finals.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, so Iowa ended up Caitlin Clark ended up beating South Carolina. So I think this case, I think again it bodes well, I think for UConn. UConn is or South Carolina has lost 3 games already this year.
Hmm.
They're 34-3. South Carolina has not lost. Oh, they had one bad see their worst season in the last under Don Staley since 2011 was 2018, 2019, they were 23-10, but they haven't lost more than 5 games since for 7 years. Uh,
Wow.
so in a season. So they've been pretty good. And they've won two of the last four national, including this one, two of the last four national championships, and made the final four, 1, 2, 3, four straight years, and probably would have the year before the COVID year as well. So they've been really good under Don Staley, who of course played at Connecticut under Gino Auriemma, the UConn coach. No, actually, Don Staley played for University of Virginia. I was thinking she played for UConn.
Hmm.
She played for UVA. I don't know why I guess I think of every good player playing for UConn maybe as one.
Right. Well, there weren't I mean, it seemed like every star went to UConn for quite a long
Yeah.
time, right? So it was but like now it seems like the players that have become sort of household names are more spread out across the college basketball world and not all consolidated to one particular school that goes undefeated or near undefeated every single season, like it was
Yeah,
with UConn.
it was UConn for a while. Before that was Tennessee for a while. It seemed like was always undefeated with Pat Summitt.
Yep.
But yeah, it looks like UConn from 2013 to 2013, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, they won three straight national championships, but they only lost one game in those 3 years total. And they actually won four straight national championships, if you include the year before that. So Gino Auriemma, the Connecticut hasn't won since 2016, so they're due. They've been in several Final Fours uh, since then, but they haven't. They've been in the Final Four 6, 7 of the past 8 years. They've been in the Final Four as well, but they haven't won in the past 8 tournaments. So it seems like maybe they are due for a win. Um, so do you think, okay, well, so we both think Connecticut's going to win. Uh,
They are the betting favorite right now too, minus 175 for the national championship.
and but we have different opinions on the men's side. You think Duke's going to win. I think Houston is going to win, or I hope Houston wins. I don't know if I think they're going to win, but that was my bet. I want,
Yes.
in some ways, I wanted to distinguish myself from other um, brackets because I thought Houston was a little bit of a dark horse pick, even though they were 1 seed, but they were like I think number 3 or number 4 betting favorite. So, but
Yeah, I think you'd like the odds right now. I think you'd still take them at they're at plus 420 for the to win the title. So you already picked them from the beginning. Now would still be a pretty decent time to place another bet, though, right?
yeah, 'cause that's just a one in. I think it was just a 1 in 4. That's actually a
Yeah.
1 in 4 chance to win. So
Yeah, Duke's at even odds right now. They're plus 100, so it's
okay,
still not bad to make a
yeah,
bet there either. So it's usually at this point somebody's a clear favorite, like on the women's side, where you're at like minus 285.
yeah,
Not a terribly exciting bet to make on the national championship, is it?
no,
Yeah, I don't tend to like to make bets that are like the heavy negative
hmm
odds, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I understand. Yeah, I don't either. Um, yeah, so Connecticut under Oriema has won 11 Division I national championships. So this would be his 12th that he would uh, win if they won.
If they do. But we'll know by next week.
And South Carolina has won 1, 2, 3. This would be Don Staley's fourth national championship. And then I don't know about the other. I don't think Texas has won in a while, and I don't think UCLA has won a women's championship either. So those would probably be the first for their coaches and their programs for a while. I think Texas may have won back in the 80s or something, but I think it's been a little while. But anyway, so that's basketball we have to look forward to. Final fours. Um, I ended up getting all eight final eight teams right in my bracket, which was chalky, but I also had the Texas Tech over St. John's prediction. Even though it's Texas Tech over Arkansas, which was unfortunate for me in terms of being an Arkansas fan. Arkansas had a big lead over Texas Tech and then lost. And then Texas Tech had a big lead over Florida and lost in the last minute or two of the game. So uh, some either some big comebacks or some uh, choking, I guess you might say, in that regional, but
Collapses or something like that.
collapses. Yeah, maybe that's more polite.
Snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yes, yes. So there will be guaranteed one SEC team in the finals. They because Auburn will play Florida. Uh, we haven't talked about that matchup. Do you think Auburn and Florida are gonna who's gonna win that one, do you think?
I watched a lot of the Auburn game for them to get into the Final Four. They were pretty good, but they seem like they have some injuries that they might be dealing with. Was one of their top players is a pretty looked like a pretty bad elbow injury, barely like
Hmm.
you know do anything with it. He was like rebounding one armed and his free throws didn't look very good in the last series either, but they held on. Uh, Auburn was pretty good though. I think with that injury though, I might flip to Florida as the expectation. Well,
Okay.
how about you? What are you thinking?
I had I didn't have Auburn even making the Final Four, so I had Florida in the Final Four. So I guess I would predict Florida because
Yeah,
Auburn. I think Auburn maybe has higher highs, but is also has lower lows. They're more inconsistent, I think, than Florida is. But yeah, I don't know who's gonna win.
yeah,
But I would. So I mean, my guess is Houston. I guess Houston in versus Florida in the final, and then Houston over Florida would be my guess at this point. I believe, would have Duke over Florida.
yeah. That's what I would go with now.
Yeah,
And I need Duke to win both games to top you in our bracket challenge, though. So they can't just win one; they have to win them both.
win them both. Yes,
For you, Houston just has to win the first game, and
first
then
game.
then you
Yeah,
you have defeated
Houston
me
wins. I win. Yeah, and then I think I win because I'm ahead of you already with UConn. So I think
on the women's side. You've already got it. Yeah.
I've clinched no matter what
So,
UConn.
yeah, it was unfortunate that apparently we both picked the same finals,
Oh, we
the
might
same
both be.
champion
Yeah, we might
without
both be
knowing
right.
what the other
Yeah.
person was doing. But we ended up choosing the same
Mhm.
champion, and that limits the excitement on the last day at least
Yeah, yeah, that does. I
for
was thinking,
in
I was
our competition, not
mhm.
necessarily for the women's games in it, but
No,
just for us.
that's just for us, just for us. Um, Speaking of excitement, should we go on to Major League Baseball, talking about the opening of the Major League Baseball season? The Royals now have played 5 games. They are 2-3 on the season. They lost 2 of 3 to the Cleveland Guardians.
Yes,
And then they've also played 2 games against the Milwaukee, still called the Brewers. And they won the first game handily, and then been shut out in the second game, 5-0. So the Royals have so far it's been loss, win, loss, win, loss. So I think it's
yes,
every other game they've won. So they're
a
on pace
trend.
to win 81 games this year, if that
Yes,
streak continues. So that would be under our 82.5, which is the Vegas prediction. So you would get the under. I'm still going with the over, but they're on pace to fall slightly under at this point. Does that matter? Well, this is only 5 games, but does it show anything to you about how the Royals are looking this year, or how they will fare the rest of the season?
there are some fairly troubling signs, I think, from the way the team is organized again. They've got players moving around to different positions, which I don't think is a good idea. wasn't a good idea before. I think it still isn't a good idea. Like India started playing in left field this week, even though we've only played, I think, one game there in spring training. So I don't know why they're doing stuff like that, even though they tried Massey out there quite a bit in spring training. But some of these things are just they're just not necessary. They even like moved Melendez from left to right at one point, and then he DH today. It's like none of these things are necessary. Like play Melendez in left or don't play him at all. You don't need to move him around defensively. It's not good for him or anybody else. So things like that are, like a little bit of, seemingly extended spring training type activities that I don't like seeing in the regular season. But this kind of indecisiveness about where players are going to be playing, if they're going to be playing,
Hmm.
I don't think bodes well for the team, at least in the short term. If they settle them down as the season goes on, maybe it gets better, but I don't know. It's the same kind of stuff we saw last year when we saw them outscoring opponents, but not winning their expectation from like the statistical analyses, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little worried about the Royals as well. I don't know. But it's only been 5 games, so I'm not
Yeah.
as pessimistic as you are, I think, at this point. I don't I guess maybe they're just still trying to find their rhythm at this point, where maybe that's why they've been switched around. There's a lot of off days early in the season. There are
Yeah.
um maybe switching things around isn't so bad because players are switched around a lot in the pre in the in exhibition play. So maybe it's not so bad early on. I don't know. I think like you
Yeah.
said though, I don't know the bullpen. I'm a little worried still I'm more worried about the bullpen side of things rather than the lineup side of things.
But
I
is it
think
the bullpen of the players or the usage of the players that is worrisome to you?
I'd say more usage of the players. I think the players are better this year. So I think like I'm with you a little bit. I don't think Quatrero's all been very good with bullpen usage. He doesn't.
Yeah.
That's I know you are a you're anti Ned Yost in a lot of ways, but I think one thing he did well was use the bullpen well because they had defined roles in the bullpen and you kind of knew what was going
Well,
on. But
yes. Yeah. They
so
did, but they didn't. But when it came to the playoffs, they definitely did.
yeah, yeah.
The regular season, it was a free for all, except at the closer position. But they usually couldn't identify which guy should have been the closer as early as they should have, as early as almost everyone else did. Like
Well, it should have been way
Soria,
earlier.
like Greg Holland was not the closer until it was so obvious that he should have been the closer. They finally made him the closer, but like they should have shifted to him like 3, 4 months before, like when he was really young,
Yeah.
even.
And then Davis probably should have been shifted earlier to the closing when Holland wasn't doing quite as well, but he was
Well,
still
he should
very
have been a reliever when they signed it, when they,
yeah,
when they
yeah.
went after him in the trade. Like, but they tried to bring him back as a starter, and that was
Starter.
a disaster again. And they already had seen Tampa go through that same progression. Like, they tried him as a starter for a while until he got so bad that they switched him to relief, and then he was very good. The
Hmm.
Royals brought him in, and they went back
Yeah.
like 2 seasons to try to do this again, and they had to go through the whole progression again before they realized that he should be a reliever, and then he moved into that closer
Is
role
that
quickly.
well, we're relitigating the 2012, 2013, some Royal seasons basically. Was
Right.
that a Dayton Moore problem, or is that an Ed Yost problem, the starting versus relieving? Because I think maybe you could say relief usage would be a Yost problem, but if somebody's a starter versus a reliever, that might be more general manager than manager.
Right. Well, so that, that's one of those things that were like the Royals did fairly well in finding like that was one of the things that Dayton Moore actually did really well was that he would find uh older starters who had were coming off of injuries and were available for less money, bringing them in and then having them become relievers. That was like the sort of thing that he like specialized in most was like finding those guys, those values, for a team that doesn't have the kind of, money to throw around that some of the other teams did. That was one of the things that Moore did well, but frequently they would find those guys, but then try to make them starters. And they'd go through the process that takes too long. They could have just gone straight to like relief, and they probably would have been better off.
Yeah, I guess they.
But they still managed to find those guys, though, right? So like maybe you need to give it. I still need to give them credit for that at least.
Yeah, I guess because starters are more valuable than relievers. Although I think the Royals for a little while proved that maybe you don't even need great starters if you have a really, 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 really good bullpen, and that's what they did in
Yeah.
2015, especially when they won. So,
Well, the way Davis, trade still was actually quite bad for a long time because they were paying him starter money to be like a seventh or eighth inning guy. So
mhm.
until like he became the closer, he never actually like met the value of his contract. So like they were way overpaying for a guy that wasn't, in one of those premium positions. They're paying like starter money, which is
Yeah,
a lot more than middle reliever money. But he
yeah,
became really important to the team and then ended up becoming the closer.
yes.
But it
Uh,
took a while. It took quite a while.
do you think Urseg can develop into a closer and a really strong closer? I guess yeah, there haven't really been a lot of opportunities this year yet, but
And so this is where it gets weird. So like they have not used him in the closer role so far
mhm.
this season. They've had him come in as like the fireman role
Yeah,
in every opportunity. So like in the seventh inning, if there's a jam situation, they're having him come in, and then they're seemingly going to have Carlos Estevez be
just a
the
closer.
actual closer when it comes to the ninth inning. So like Urseg's going to just be like the roving fireman, and that's what it looks like it's going to be. Although this has never been like spelled out by the team as like these are the roles because they don't seem to have roles, which is
Yeah,
somewhat maddening to certain baseball like traditionalists, or at least people that like appreciate the sabermetric side of things and
and
a
to
little
one
more structure.
Dr. Andrew Scaff being one of those
Yes, yes,
frustrated fans. We'll see what happens in the next 157 games, however. So
yes.
the Royals, they played 5 games. So far, I think they have one more. Is it just one more against Milwaukee?
With Milwaukee, yeah. And then
And
then I think they come back home for a week or two, maybe even I think week and a half, something like that.
yeah,
Uh,
they, I mean, yeah. So they're Brewers, and then they have one more game against the Brewers, and they're home again with the Orioles and the Twins. So 3 games with the Orioles at home, 4 games with the Twins, then on the road at Guardians, at Yankees, at Tigers. So they have a long road trip after April 10th. So from April 11th to the 20th, they play 10. They actually will play starting April 4th through the 20th. They will play 17 games in 17 days. So no off days for a while. Once they
wow.
get off day on Thursday, the 3rd of April. So that's a lot of games in a row.
Yeah, that's a pretty difficult stretch too. Of some at least contending teams too that are expected to contend. The Yankees and Orioles, I think, are generally considered pretty
Orioles,
good.
yeah, and the Twins and the Guardians and the
Twins
Tigers are
are
all expected to contend for the Central as well,
yeah.
the Royals. So they don't have, last year, I think they had a lot of early games against the White Sox, which helped. They don't have that this year. Um, yeah, it seems like they have a tough schedule so far in the early going to me.
Yeah.
Which I didn't really think about. I didn't think when I thought my over under, I didn't think about scheduling early on versus late. But
Yeah. 'Cause
if
it
they
is
can,
possible they could pile up a lot of losses early against these tougher teams, especially if they like say they, drop tomorrow's game against Milwaukee.
Mhm.
That'd be off to a fairly rough start then if they have to
Yeah.
go face some of these tougher teams like immediately after facing,
Mhm.
a team that got completely destroyed by the Yankees too. I don't know. Did you see the score of that one that maybe the second game of the season?
Yeah,
The 20 run, nine
yeah.
home run outburst from the Yankees.
With their new torpedo bats. Have you
Yeah.
following this story?
I was gonna ask you about that actually. So yeah.
Their innovative bat shape is that the new revolution in baseball? The torpedo bat, or is it
Well,
just a kind of a fad?
it appears to be. I guess what was it? Today I think Ellie Dela Cruz cried out the bat for the first time, and he went like had 4 hits and 2 home runs and 7 RBIs. So it seems like I think a lot of players are going to be trying this out like very soon with numbers like that are coming up.
Yeah.
Did you see that, Dela Cruz?
I didn't see that about Dela Cruz.
Yeah,
I was just reading about the Yankees. I kind of remember Giancarlo Stanton's bat last year being kind of weird looking, and so I guess that was the first
yeah,
look at the bat, and then the other Yankees have kind of latched onto it. Uh,
yeah.
I wonder if they'll be banned though soon.
I'm wondering if they're going to make some kind of announcement about it too. Because yeah, I mean it has changed the shape, but I don't know what the rule says about
I think
the
it just says
shape of the
the
bat. Because they've been doing that like cup the top of the bat to take some of the weight out of the very top. That had been like a trend for a while, and they're like, well, that's okay, but it can only be so
deep.
however
Yeah.
deep, some specific
Yeah.
amount deep.
I think
But
it
yeah,
just matters. There has to be there's a maximum diameter of the bat, which I think is 2.61 inches or something like that, I was reading.
yeah,
And as long as no part of the bat is more than 2.61 inches in diameter, it's okay.
yeah,
So it doesn't really matter where on the bat, I guess that so so I guess you could have a bat that's a reverse. You could just hold the barrel of the bat and swing with the handle, try to hit with it.
yeah,
I guess that would be okay.
yeah.
Um
When I guess too, like the barrel is wider, like earlier in the bat, closer to the
yeah.
handle.
And
So
then
like
it trails off. Yeah.
then it tapers to the end. But instead of having like the cupped end, it just tapers. So it's actually like smaller mass at the end of the bat,
Yeah.
because it's narrower.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see like that would have that big of an effect. But I mean, 9 home runs and 20 runs scored is a pretty impressive
Was that at was that
debut.
at Yankee Stadium or was it someplace else? Because
I
the
think it
Yankees
was in Yankee
always
Stadium.
score a ton of runs at Yankee Stadium, and so that stadium is a bandbox, and like it's very much advantageous for left-handed. So it might not be as yeah. I think we'd have to let the whole season play out to see if it's you know,
Yeah,
sometimes maybe just a couple of games can skew the sample. So because it wasn't like Giancarlo Stanton was dominating the league last year with his torpedo bat. He's
right.
but maybe he'd be more washed up seeming than he is now. He's just been walking injury for the last 2 or 3 years, or limping injury. He's not really a walking injury anymore. He can barely move. He's this, probably slowest guy now in baseball. I don't think he was always the slowest guy in baseball, but now he probably is.
Yeah. When he was Mike Stanton, he was relatively quick. But now
Yeah,
that he's Giancarlo, yes.
Giancarlo. Yeah, he's slower. I think even slower than Salvi's not the fastest. Uh,
And
Yadier Molina wasn't the fastest. I think, but I think Giancarlo is slower than that, or even the aging Pujols or aging Miguel Cabrera. Those guys are pretty slow too.
yeah, they're not rounding second, looking for third
Yeah.
on almost anything, right?
Yes. Um, but yeah, we'll see what the Royals do, rounding uh, this second series off against the Brewers going forward. But hopefully they'll be 3-3 at the end of those 6 games at least.
Yeah, yeah. One note on the trade though between the Royals and Cincinnati that might be interesting to bring up. Jonathan India has been quite good after his opening day over 5 game, but I think now he's hitting over 300 with
Mhm.
like multi hits and in his I think every other game that he's played since there. But Brady Singer had his opening day or his first start of the season and was fantastic for Cincinnati tonight. 7 innings, only 1 hit, 2 walks, I think
Ooh,
9 strikeouts. So
you're good.
it's I don't think there's any you can't say that anybody's won or
Run the
lost the
trade.
trade
Yeah.
after
One
one 5 game
5 game
stretch
stretch.
where
Yeah, we'll have to see what
each
happens.
player has like appeared in their equivalent games, but uh it doesn't seem like it's been a disaster, at least for the Royals trade. It looked like
Yeah.
it could have been. I don't know. Did you see that
But
play?
Indy got hit in the face, I saw. What is
It
he all right?
was very close to missing
Cheek guard?
the ear guard because he doesn't
Yeah.
wear the extended guard like Bobby Witt
Oh, okay.
wears, the one that goes like all the way down to the jaw.
Yeah.
along the jaw. He just wears the ear one, and it
Mhm.
clipped it like right on the ear. So I mean, it was close to being like end of season type.
Oh wow.
So I think they were quite lucky with that. Did you see that, or
I saw the
you obviously
highlights.
heard about it, I guess, but
Yeah, I saw like a highlight of it, but I didn't watch it that closely. So that was yeah, I'm glad he didn't get injured seriously.
yeah, yes, definitely.
Yeah. Um any other Royals news we want to talk about, or should we move? I guess we have a couple of things going on in the future. We want to talk about those, but I think we can start winding down the power hour if you wish. This is sort of a short power hour, a
Yeah.
no hour half hour.
Hour and a half hours this time, maybe somewhere in there. Hour,
There are a
three
couple.
quarter hours, somewhere in
Yeah,
that area.
the NFL draft is coming up in a few weeks on the 24th, so we have 3 weeks to get ready for that. There were some announcements this week about changing overtime rules in the NFL to be more like the playoff overtime, although it would still only last 10 minutes. But both teams would get the ball, rather than only one team getting the ball if they scored a touchdown. And also, there's going to be some sort of new camera system that will sort first downs, and it's not going to be the chains anymore, at least not as the um, primary method of determining things. So I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but we'll figure it out as time goes on over the summer and into this preseason and into the regular season. But hasn't been a whole lot of NFL news regarding player movement lately. It seems like most of that has probably settled down until after the draft. We still don't have Aaron Rodgers settled anywhere. We don't have, Pittsburgh doesn't have a quarterback. It doesn't seem like. Neither does, maybe Minnesota, uh, unless they go with McCarthy. But it seems like
Seems like
Rodgers.
they should just go with McCarthy unless he's not healthy still, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
mean, you want somebody else there for coverage, but
I think I
seems
think
like you should go with McCarthy, right?
over Rodgers for 1 year. I don't know.
I don't know that you want to
I think they
introduce
should have kept Darnold probably, and maybe
maybe
I would have ditched McCarthy and sent him somewhere. Uh,
uh
Well, his because I think some teams would have traded maybe a first round pick for him this year because the quarterback class this year is much weaker after Cam Ward. Somebody might have taken McCarthy because McCarthy still is young. He didn't have anywhere, he was injured early, but he doesn't have like the wear and tear on him. So I think he could have. I don't know. That's what maybe
well, so maybe you're saying that there's a possible trade opportunity then for McCarthy. Maybe Minnesota does sign Aaron Rodgers, but trades McCarthy to some other team that would have drafted a quarterback, but there isn't one available for them.
well,
Is that
that's
is
yeah,
that
that
is
would.
that the are you playing GM devil's
No,
advocate
that
here?
I think that would be dumb because I think Rodgers only has like 1 year. So you want somebody who will. I think Rodgers is a 1 year stopgap. But if they had kept Darnold, they could have traded McCarthy for something, I think.
Yeah.
Because Darnold, I think, he's still younger than Mahomes and younger than he's the same age or younger than Baker Mayfield and some of those other guys who are still he's still on the right side of 30 and probably has I'd say 5 to 6 more very good seasons if he continues his play the right way. So um but I guess if you think McCarthy is going to be it in the future, maybe,
No.
but I don't, maybe you want to keep him. But I still think they could have gotten something for McCarthy and then had a decent quarterback for several years and then drafted one down the road. But that's what I would have tried to do if I were Minnesota.
No.
You have a bird in the hand rather than trade the one in the bush for them and keep the one in the hand. Um,
Yeah.
and just
But
to
then
see
Darnold ended up moving to
Seattle.
Seattle.
And
Yeah,
then
that's right.
Geno
Yeah.
Smith went from Seattle to Vegas.
Raiders, right? Yeah.
And then Gardner
Yeah.
Minshew ended up going to the Chiefs.
Yes. And they also re-signed Zappy, right?
Yeah,
So
Zappy. So it could be a Zappy Minshew third battle for the backups, but I think probably it'll be Minshew, and then Zappy's a good third stringer. I think better than
yeah.
Olin. Um, but he's also possibly going to be poached by somebody too. So that's something you worry about.
So yeah, what happened to their who was their third string last season? I think sort of seemed to like, right? The Ola Dokin.
They liked Oladokin okay, but I think Zappy's better than
So I mean,
Oladokin.
is Ola Dokin gone then, or
I think he'll still be a. I don't know what happens to what
is he
happened to
still
Oladokin.
technically around, but
He
maybe
might
he's not
still
expected
technically
to
be
be
around.
there?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think what really happened was Bouchel lost his chance when when he got pissed off that he wasn't on the main roster, uh, and then he went to Buffalo, and I think he's not really. I don't think is he still even with Buffalo?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, he got injured, didn't he? Wasn't that what it was
Yeah, I think
at the
he
beginning? And then in the preseason, the previous year, last year,
yeah he did re-sign with the Bills on a 1-year contract back in January. He had a neck injury, missed the whole season.
has Wentz signed anywhere, or is he
I don't think Wentz is.
uh his one appearance with the Chiefs at the end of last season didn't go well at all. So
Yeah, that
I
may
wonder
have.
if that may have maybe spelled the end of the career then almost. Do you think?
I possibly. I don't know. That would seem to be a little harsh, maybe. I don't know. But I thought Wentz would have been a good backup still to keep around, but maybe they like Minshew. Minshew is younger, and maybe offers more of a chance if Mahomes is hurt to have a potential playoff team. I don't know. I thought Wentz might be all right, but maybe they just like Minshew
Well, I think
better.
it's more of a scenario of what the offensive line is going to look like, though, too, right?
Yeah,
So,
Minshew's more mobile at this point in his career than
right.
Wentz is. Um,
Like if the offensive line was like totally like rock solid, then I think Wentz probably would have been just fine in that last game. But he was having to run
yeah, that's true.
for his own safety, then
Yeah.
uh, and unable to find receivers that quickly. So that was like the worst case scenario for his style of play with the line that they had, I think, at that point in the season. So I
Yeah.
don't I don't necessarily think it was that, reflected that poorly on him overall, but really with that combination, that was maybe the worst.
So I looked up Oladokin. He still is with the Chiefs. He signed a
Okay.
reserve futures contract in February with the Chiefs, so he's still there. So it's possible he still could be the third quarterback.
So they have four on
Yeah,
under contract right now. Yeah,
yeah.
interesting.
And Zappy signed a 1-year contract on in March. So he didn't sign. So Oladokin signed the futures contract in February. So Zappy is the most recent signing because I think in March 17th and uh, Minshew was
Just a few days before, I think. Oh, the one that was announced at least. Anyway.
yeah Minshew signed also on March 17th. They signed the same day apparently Minshew and
Yeah, I
Zappy.
think they may have announced it a couple
They
days
announced
earlier,
Minshew.
but
They announced Minshew before they announced Zappy. I
right. But it wasn't by a lot. It was just yeah,
Mhm.
day or 2 days, 3 days, something like that. Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
quick.
Well, so we have the NFL draft to look forward to. We have the NFL season. We'll see what happens with the offseason. In we have the NBA playoffs, which are going to start in a couple of weeks. It looks like NHL playoffs are starting a couple of weeks as well. We might even have a big news story before the NHL playoffs begin, since uh, Alex Ovechkin is nearing Wayne Gretzky's 894 career goals mark. He just scored his 891st career goal on Tuesday night, which is tonight, against the Boston Bruins. So he's only 3 away from tying, 4 away from winning, uh, 4 away from surpassing Gretzky's mark. So that could be done this season. It also maybe possibly would have to wait till next season if he doesn't continue his torrid goal scoring pace. But of course, Ovechkin was injured. He missed 15 or 16 games this season because of a fibula injury. And he's still playing very well without it. So this is one of his best seasons in years that he's been playing. So and the Capitals are the top team in the Eastern Conference this year. So they've already clinched a playoff spot. And so I hope being sort of close to Washington. from Frostburg, I'm looking for this for the Capitals to hoping that they can win another Stanley Cup. But
And I think
um,
the odds makers think that Ovechkin will break the record this season. I think that was the way that the books are leaning right now.
the
So,
book's good. Okay. So we'll have that countdown, I guess, or analysis when he if or when he does break that record. So we have that to look forward to. More baseball, of course, coming at us. We have the NFL draft. I think we maybe mentioned briefly in 3 weeks. Uh, we have the Major League Baseball draft coming up in a couple of months, right? That we can preview a little bit of that we've been doing. But summer is a little bit of a slow time at the Power Hour, but we still will have playoffs and things like that. But we'll also maybe devolve back into our TV watching craze. I did end up watching the second episodes of both um, Running Point and Winning Time, so I'm a little bit behind that. I'm still about the same. I'm not enthralled with either of those shows at this point. Uh,
yeah,
I don't know which one I like more, but have you watched
yeah.
any
I
more
don't know.
of those shows?
I think I've seen well, I've seen all of Winning Time
Hmm.
already, but I really liked I enjoyed Winning Time, but it was uncomfortable a lot. But that was because of some of the way the portrayals of some of the players and personalities around the team, but it was generally pretty funny. So I don't know. I thought it was entertaining.
Yeah, I'll have to keep
Then
watching it.
but then Running Point gets a little odd, I think, at times because they're going sort of like over the top on certain scenarios, but it's not really all that different. But it's Succession set in the Lakers organization, right?
Yeah, I didn't find Succession to be a very good show. I didn't think it was that great. I thought Succession was a kind of worse Billions, and I enjoyed Billions a lot. Uh,
I
so
didn't
I Paul
particularly like
Giamatti.
Billions either. I don't know.
I like Paul
I
Giamatti. I
thought
like Paul
Succession
Giamatti.
was okay, but yeah, Giamatti was good, but all the characters were just reprehensible.
Yeah, I thought it was a more
Sa-
entertaining show. It was
sa- Same with Succession, though. None of the characters were likable, or like you
no,
don't really want to identify with any of them because they're all terrible.
yeah, I felt it that way about Succession. I kind of felt that way about Mad Men, but Mad Men really grew on me. And I never really gave Succession a chance because I thought it just sucked. Uh,
Yeah,
and I thought it was, oh, this is just a worse version of Billions. I like Brian Cox, but like whatever. It's not
yeah,
it. I enjoyed the I just enjoyed Billions a lot more. Maybe because I
yeah.
both of them were placed in New York, but I felt like Succession was in New York too, wasn't it?
I think so.
Or at least some sort of New Yorkish city.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Of
I like
those series, though, I think Succession is the only one that I made it to the end of. I think I
yeah,
saw like one season of Billions and was like, "No, I don't really want to watch this." Even Mad Men, I think I watched the first episode of it and I was like, I don't care for this, and
yeah. You
and
should.
I don't think it will be a thing. That's what was the
Uh,
first thing that I thought when I watched it, and I was like, wow, I don't know if I've been that wrong about a show before. As like how
Mad Men is
popular
a
it
really
became.
really good show. Mad Men
Um,
is like one of the premier prestige TV shows of all time. I think you should give Mad Men a rewatch. Uh,
um,
but I still like Billions. I thought Billions was more fun. Maybe had some Yale connections, which I liked. That Chuck Berry
yeah,
was a Yaley, so I enjoyed some of that stuff. Um, and yeah, I don't really like finance and stuff like that or tech bro type things, but I
yeah.
enjoy some of that. I
Well,
don't think I've seen the last season of Billions yet, or
there was
whatever.
an there was an HBO show that would just wrapped their most recent season called Industry. Have you seen any of
I
Industry?
haven't even heard of industry, even though
Yeah,
I
it didn't get a lot of talk, but it was another like ESP, another like, prestige sort of finance,
yeah.
set in the finance world
I
show
think
from
there've
like
been enough of
ESPN.
those shows.
And it's another very uncomfortable sort of
Hmm.
show because all of the characters are again terrible people, but it's set in finance. I think everybody in finance is generally kind of terrible,
Yeah,
isn't that? Is
yeah.
that the impression that you get based on having seen these different shows set in the
Basically,
world?
yeah, yeah, I think so. I did see the end of Severance,
Oh, I haven't even started the new season yet.
second
Is it
season. I thought the first season was better than the second season, but the second
okay?
season has some good stuff in it.
Okay,
Um,
something to look forward to for me then.
yeah, yeah.
I need to get on it, is what you're telling me. I
You
need
should
to
watch Severance, the second season. Yeah,
stop
it's
messing around and just watch it.
you're supposed to watch it. It's over. You don't have to. You won't have to wait for new episodes to come out anymore.
Yeah,
10 episode season, you can get through it probably pretty quickly.
I did start White Lotus, though the new season of that. It's
I haven't
been somewhat
watched any of White
entertaining.
Lotus. MJ
Yeah,
likes White Lotus. I haven't watched any of it, but
so some of the characters are at least
it's
less reprehensible.
isn't it different every season? It's like its own thing, but it's all set at some resort. Like
It's like
every,
the same. It's like a sort of like a franchise resort in different locations. So it's like, yeah, each season is one vacation essentially for like a set of visitors to that location. And so each season will be in a different place, different people. There's some thread that's pulled through the different seasons though too, but uh
wasn't F. Murray Abraham in White Lotus?
he was in one of the seasons, yeah.
I like him, so I'd watch anything he's in.
So did you watch Mythic Quest?
No, I didn't watch Mythic Quest. I just looked up uh F. Murray
You would
Abraham
like
on Wikipedia,
I
but
think you'd like Mythic Quest. Did you like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? Did you ever watch any
I
of
thought
that?
it was all right. I liked it. Okay.
Did
Uh,
you like Mac?
I didn't find Mac that I well, I thought there were I didn't like Mac or was it Rob? Was that the other one? No, not Rob. It was who Dennis and Mac. I thought one of
Yes.
them should have been out of the show. I didn't like
Yes.
having both of them in it. I thought it was too much two Jerrys in the show, and
Okay.
so that was the problem with you can only have one Jerry, and then they tried to
Yeah.
differentiate the two Jerrys, and like Mac got fat for a while for some reason, and then like Dennis got just to be even more annoying. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought if they just had only one of them, that would have been funnier. But they were
Well,
both were
yeah, they could have
creators of the show,
done
so
it sort of,
both kind of had to be in it
yeah.
for that. So
But how about Silicon Valley? Did you
I saw
see
Silicon
that?
Valley. I saw that all the way through. Yeah.
Mythic Quest is basically if Mac from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was is in had his own company and was set in the show Silicon Valley. That's basically what
Oh, okay.
Mythic Quest is.
That might be fun.
With F. Murray Abraham as like a writer who's uh, been pulled into the video game world to write stories for video
I see.
games, and he's like sort of an old fuddy-duddy type
Ooh,
who's
what was
become like a fantasy writer for video games late in
uh,
his career.
okay? It was an Apple TV show. So MJ has Apple TV, so I might be able to watch that on there.
I think you might like it. If you can tolerate Mac. If you don't if you hated Mac, then it's gonna be tough. But it has F. Murray Abraham in it, so that may be enough of a draw.
Yeah. I don't know. I again, I thought Mac and Dennis were the worst part of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia because they were, again,
Yeah,
for the most part, they were too similar for a while. They just kind of traded storylines. It seemed like for a while, like one, will focus, but Charlie was good. Frank Reynolds was good. Sweet D was good, but they had two, but there
yeah,
was, the problem was they had two Jerrys and
yeah.
they uh,
I can see that.
that was, because they were trying to do the Seinfeld thing. Because originally they didn't have Frank Reynolds as in the first season, so I think it wasn't as good. And then they
Yeah.
brought him in, and it was better, but they still had the two Jerry problem.
Well, I
Uh,
heard one story that that he actually asked to be in the Danny DeVito asked to be in it, and then so they wrote they wrote him in to the series like he wasn't part of it, but he asked to be in it. So how could you say
okay,
no, right?
yeah, how could you say no? Um,
And then he's been in basically every episode kind
mhm.
of since then. So which is like 15 years or something after that. It's a pretty good show, Mike.
It is a
Maybe
pretty good show. It's not my
maybe
favorite,
you
but
don't
it has
like some of the two characters, but it's a good show.
it's all right. It was a
Yeah.
decent show. I'll give it that. And know what was also a decent show? the Warren Trek Power Hour, I think, is a decent show. At least today's episode was a decent one this week. But I think we've exhausted our possibilities but we've previewed what we might do going forward, which, if we have myriad possibilities ahead of us. Uh, so we'll explore those going forward, and but tonight we will wrap things up. Do you have any other tidbits or anecdotes or morsels to
Uh,
add?
Probably just most of the time would just be most of what I would suggest would just be to watch the national championship games, right?
Watch the
That's
final.
probably the
We have the
most
Final Fours coming up,
the Final
so
Four national championship games. Yeah. So by
yes,
our next show, we'll know who has won.
know who has won, who has lost, uh, who's had the shining moments,
That's right.
and
And
who's had
between us, we will know who has won our bracket challenge.
we will that as well too. We will know that as well too. So, um, we wish you all the very best of luck in your if you're making bets this week. As long as your interests do not conflict with ours. Although really our interests they've already been kind of sealed and done. So there's not really a whole lot of we are. I don't think we're going to make any new bets unless you said Houston was plus 420 um, to win the Final Four. That's not a bad. I don't think that's bad. And you think Duke's
Yeah.
plus 100 isn't a bad bet either. So um,
So I think I would stick with my pick. It sounds like you would stick with yours.
yeah, our UConn seems to become the overwhelming favorite in the women's side though. So uh,
Right.
we wouldn't
But we
probably.
both had them in our brackets from the
Yeah,
beginning, so it's
yeah,
hard to go away from that.
yeah. Well,
Mm.
um, I guess we can wrap up this week of the Power Hour. Uh, I am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Morning Trek Power Hour. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcast, which is available on many different podcast delivery platforms. As we mentioned before, we wish you the best of luck if you're making bets this coming weekend or week, baseball related, NBA, NHL, or the NCAA basketball tournaments. Uh, as long as your interests do not conflict with ours, as we said before, simple, to paraphrase Don Corleone to Virgil Sollozzo in the first Godfather movie. Um, so maybe we'll be watching. Maybe we can bring back the Godfather. Have you seen all three Godfathers, Dr. Scaff?
I have not seen all three.
You haven't seen the third one?
Actually, I haven't seen the second
I
one
haven't seen the
either.
second one either. Okay, second one's pretty good. Third one, I actually,
Yeah, I've
I
been
actually
told that.
like, I actually like the third one as well because although I think I mentioned to you the more recent cut of it, the Coppola restoration or whatever, the third, the death of Michael Corleone. I don't think it's as good as the original version of it. I like the original.
Well, I think the third is somewhat canned, right, of the three.
It is, but I like it's about opera and papal politics, two subjects that are close to my heart, which I enjoy, and a lot of it takes place in Sicily, which I also like.
Yeah.
It's also got a good performance by Joe Mantegna, um, but it goes a little bit over the top in some places. Some people think, but I like it. I think it's misunderstood. Uh, as I believe in The Sopranos, Bokeem Woodbine's character also believes that The Godfather Part Three is misunderstood. Do you remember he played Mike Milligan in the Fargo series.
Yes,
Uh,
that's
he,
right.
he was that rapper guy in one of The Sopranos. Did you finish The Sopranos?
I saw the first season of The Sopranos like much later, and then I lost I lost HBO again at that time, and then I never went back to pick it up to finish
Ah, it's a
it.
good show too. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So it's another one that's on my list of things I need to watch, but I keep trying to watch like the new stuff, and then I
yeah.
end up never going back to pick up the old stuff or watching movies anymore. Really, I don't really see like almost anything. So a lot of TV though, a lot of TV.
Well, we have all that to look forward to, so we could make TV appointments going forward or movie appointments and review those on the Warren Trek Power Hour. But we've already had our signing off little spiel, so I'm not going to repeat that. But we again are the Warren Trek Power Hour, and we wish you best of luck this week. And we also will bid you a good day.